And this, gosh, this feels like it might have been the conversation we were having the last day before the holiday weekend, I'm trying to remember. But less than half of patients see their GPs face-to-face in parts of the country. The NHS struggling to cope with the backlog caused by the pandemic. In some areas, 1 in 10 people, 1 in 10 are having to wait 3 weeks for any GP appointment, face-to-face or virtual. Wow. Give you that number again. In some parts of the UK, 1 in 10... Is this UK? Yes, it is the whole of the UK. OK. 1 in 10 are having to wait 3 weeks for a GP appointment. Jamie Jenkins is a health commentator and former head of health statistics at the Office for National Statistics and joins me now. What's gone wrong? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Yes, I think it's kind of a perfect storm that we've got on the data at the moment. I'll just explain kind of why this matters. So we went into the kind of the pandemic, Nick, with the UK in particular. We've got it evolved across the different four nations' healthcare, but it's a similar problem across all four nations where we've got kind of one of the lowest numbers of GPs per kind of 1,000 people across Europe. You know, we've got one of the lowest there. We went into the pandemic there, and then what we've kind of seen over the pandemic is that a lot of people stayed away from GPs, Nick, which has basically meant that we've got this big backlog, and as Javid has been talking about, potentially the NHS waiting list continuing to grow. Because if we estimate what's gone on, Nick, we've probably got about 7.4 million people who've missed diagnoses since the start of the pandemic. And what we're starting to see then is that fewer people have been coming forward the last year. There's a huge demand on the health service at the moment, in particular for GPs. And why does that matter? So if we track the actual death statistics now, Nick, over the last 6 weeks, we're starting to see deaths go above average for the first time of year since the kind of the second wave of the pandemic. We had excess deaths. The first wave we did, and recently we've started seeing that again. But the difference this time, Nick, is this is not just solely down to COVID deaths. We're seeing more non-COVID deaths for the time of year now than before, and that's kind of alarming because we could start now to be seeing in the data kind of the hidden costs of the pandemic. Are we seeing people dying now because they haven't come forward over the last year?
How long, you can't just go and switch on a tap and loads of doctors suddenly pop off the conveyor belt. How long does it take to train a doctor? GP?
Well, it takes, numbers of years, Nick, to do this. And this is a phenomenon which, because of an ageing population across most of the developed world, we're starting to see no impact of this across other parts. You can't just import doctors as well. It's not very easy to do that. I think, to be frank, it's probably just some forward planning that's gone wrong in the NHS, because we know with the population statistics, we know what the kind of the demand's going to be. Why we haven't been planning for this for a long time, is anybody's question there.
That's the point I was going to make. This tracks back not just to this administration, but I would have thought warning bells needed to sound 3, 4, 5 years ago about this, given your very relevant point that we have an ageing population as well.
Indeed, Nick, and it's not something that is kind of just creep up on us, because we know from the ONS statistics that we've got an ageing population. That's going to put a huge demand on the kind of the NHS going forward. I think the story about people not being able to see their GPs face-to-face is obviously a pertinent one, because it's not just a problem of getting that GP appointment. It's actually, if you do get one, can you see somebody face-to-face? And there's kind of a bit of a lottery in terms of where that is across the country. Obviously, older people are probably more likely to want to go to see their GP, and these are the people who tend to have those more serious illnesses that need seeing.
All right, I will leave it there. Jamie, thank you. Jamie Jenkins, health commentator there, finishing that report. All right, coming up after the news, Extinction Rebellion.